Docking request accepted.
Good morning, New Eden. Today is October 5th, 2025, and this is the Federation Frontline Report. I'm your host, Frozen Fallout, and today we have a really special guest that we have in our long-running, what we're going to be doing for quite a while, for most of October, is our CSM interviews for the upcoming CSM elections. Thank you all for tuning in, and we have Dujek Oneye that is with us today. Thank you so much for joining us. How's it going, man?
I'm great. I'm busy during the AT season, playing as much EVE as I can possibly cram into any week.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. And I hear that you're doing AT tournament stuff as of late, so that's been keeping you really busy, I bet.
Yeah, it's like bittersweet in a way to put the campaigning season during the busiest EVE season anyway, and it's right after summer as well, so like there's a bit of a lull and everyone comes back and they're like, yeah, let's play EVE. So it's got a triple threat of lots to do and lots of fun.
Absolutely. So, speaking of the CSM, you are running for CSM again this year. How many years have you been running now?
This is my third time running. I didn't get in the first year. I got runner-up position, and I got in last year. And this year, I'm gonna try to get in again.
Absolutely, yeah. So, tell us, what is the CSM to you, and what do you think the CSM can accomplish as a CSM member? What can you accomplish?
I didn't quite know before I got in, and I was pleasantly surprised at how much we could get accomplished. In addition to, like, we're shown what CCP is working on, and we get to have thoughts about it, and we get to say, like, this part, just, we don't think this will work in the game, and this part is great, and let's expand upon that. Like, we come in before most of the work is done so that we can, like, sort through stuff. But in addition to that, there is a lot of community help. We talk to the community a lot, and people will come in and they'll have like quality of life issues that they want brought up, lots of which go through and into the game. We have bug reports that we work with the community and the devs to get different issues fixed. It could be just about anything, whether it's like launcher issues or various like disconnects or like anything that you can imagine. There are tons of small things that go unnoticed, and
When the skyhooks were all on fire for a while, like getting that reported.
Oh, for sure. And then the last thing that I didn't really hear all that much about before I got in, and it was a bigger part than I thought, was in addition to having weekly meetings, a lot of the CSM is one-on-one talks with various devs working on their pet projects and our pet projects. So, like, for instance, Drake spent a lot of time talking about Pochven. Mick and I did a lot of wormhole stuff. Young Puke did a lot of faction war stuff, working on like LP wallets and so on that he wants to get into the game. And I was working on new player experience, and I was working on the freelance projects, which I have huge hopes for going forward. Like, it had a bit of a rocky start, and I thought it was interesting to hear why corp projects were implemented and then they had to like re-implement freelance projects again. Like, you'd think that they were the same and they ended up not being the same. So like there was a lot of what seemed to be double work there. Like making one delivery method for one and making one delivery method for another, despite being like having the same objective. But going forward, when we get ACLs for that, and it could be an amazing system. I think that it could do all sorts of things in the game.
I like the contract system. I have to say that not all of it is, your immediate thought of how or why you would be paying somebody to do something. Because it's, I think that one of the big improvements that was really interesting was the courier contract kind of system that they set up inside the projects now. And the concept, though, that I found really interesting was in faction warfare. Faction warfare became way more profitable and all of a sudden has an ISK income based on the freelance project system. So with the ability to encourage people to come into faction warfare, encourage people to flex specific systems. I've seen the Keldari greatly use this with extremely high payouts for running in specific systems. I would say that is. I think there's some people who dismiss it because they don't get to do with it what they want to do with it, but there's a lot that can be done with it if you just think outside the box a little.
Yeah, I encourage anyone who can't do with it what they want to do with it to just reach out. Tell us what you want. I've given CCP Nomad list that I don't know, it's 100 items long of stuff that I would like. I would like stuff like if you do a certain thing, they give you a contract that you can accept, like a exclusive contract that you can't see unless you're in the project, for instance. That way you could do like subsidized ships, or like if you join my fleet, here's a handout ship so that the FC doesn't have to spend the first 15 or 20 minutes of a fleet handing out ships to everyone. Like the contracts just pop up for the people who join the project. That is locked to people who are in the fleet. Like there's so many things that I think that this could put into the game, which would be great. We're going to need some time, but I've done a lot of stuff with that, and it's been fun.
Would you say that that's, I guess, actually, let me not lead it that way. What do you think your best example of a project that you got completed as a CSM or a change that you brought to the game by being a CSM member?
So I think that's threefold. One is wait and see, because like the time frame of these changes aren't like, we come in, we say we want this, and then CCP will say like, yeah, but we've got the next year planned out, but we're talking right now about what we could do in the expansion, like the first one after your term ends, stuff like that. So some of this is yet to be seen. Some of it is just like a long laundry list of small changes, like skyhook management without having to be in the system of the skyhook, being able to like double click on completed orders in the market. One of the things that I was asked to ask for and have worked with, and that we got in the last patch, was the ability to change your character's gender when resculpting your character.
I thought that was very cool. Yeah,
super
I was wondering.
Popular, and like so many people wanted that, especially like it's such an old game. People made their characters 20 years ago, and they want a bit of variety, or they want to update how they feel about their character. So that was a pretty big thing. And the last thing, which never gets talked, well, it gets talked about during the CSM campaigning, especially from incumbent CSMers, but it doesn't ever get shown, are if CCP come to us and they say, hey, we think this is cool, what do you think about it? And people are like, holy, you can't put that in the game. Do not think about that again, please. Like, once in a while, they'll have ideas for us that are like out there, And some of the out there ideas are great, and some of the out there ideas are not so great. And it's not even like people hear this and they think like, yeah, CCP know nothing about their game, but they want to make the game exciting and push the envelope, and like it's not from a lack of understanding of what the game is about. It's more like trying to create something that we haven't seen before, not just like an infinite amount of plus 5% stats or minus 5% stats to balance ships. Like the Cenotaph is one of those things, right? It's a beloved and hated ship, depending on where you are. If you love flying the Cenotaph, if you have fun with it in the AT, you might like it. I like flying the Cenotaph. It is also busted. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be toned down, especially for wormholes. But that's the kind of thing that if they came up with a Cenotaph in a different year, for instance, maybe the CSM say, no, we don't want that. Or maybe there are like a long line of things like that in the past which didn't get approved because people saw it and they thought, we can't live with that. Blops
Absolutely.
Titans, I don't know. Something fun.
Blast Titans. Okay, that's that'd be interesting. So for the people that aren't familiar with you, let's take the Wayback Machine real quick here. Before you became ultimately famous and are a master of EVE Online, a council member amongst immortals. But how did you start off in this game? What got you into EVE Online?
I first heard about EVE Online when I lived in Iceland when it was released. And that was a pretty big deal. I was like a pure RTS player back then, so I didn't really get into it then. I had a friend who I played WoW with back in the day. He also was an EVE player, and he played on the Hydra team that won and then got disqualified from the AT for collusion. And I was at his place, and he was showing me playing EVE Online, and I thought that was pretty cool.
What year was that in? Do you think?
Say that again.
What year was that in?
That was 88 or 9 or something like that. It was Outbreak and Hydra Reloaded, and then they got disqualified, and then PL got that win, I think.
So that's around like what, 2013, 15?
Yeah, like 12 or something like that. I would have to look at the wiki to remember exactly when it was. It's a while ago. Anyway, he showed me what EVE was about, and I liked it more for like the AT side of things. So I didn't immediately start playing EVE, but I do like esports in a general sense. Like I've always watched StarCraft, so like watching EVE Online for the tournament side of things was interesting to me. And I started watching it then, and then I started playing EVE a few years later because I had a kidney transplant. So I had to stay at home anyway. And it was like, okay, I've got a couple of months worth of recovery, and I just have to find something that takes up a lot of time. So I started playing EVE at the very start of 2014. And my friend had taught me everything about, like, you need an off-grid Lynx pilot, and you need capitals eventually, and you need somebody to trade in Jita, and so on. So, like, I started EVE, I played it for, like, 2 weeks, and then I made 7 accounts, or, like, 6 more accounts. So, like, I gotta train all these things simultaneously. I don't have time for my main character to train trading skills and capital skills and link skills. So I just made a whole bunch of characters in order to like train more faster.
Right.
Got really into it at that point.
Awesome. So what is your main activities that you're up to today?
I live in Null, but I've also lived in wormhole space the whole time I've played Eve. Basically, I started out in a SIG called Crow Vanguard, which was a day tripping SIG where we'd take augur navies and harbingers and zealots and lodge into wormholes, and we'd farm C3s and then we go home again. So I ended up joining Wormhole Corp pretty soon after I started playing Eve, and I've stayed in Wormhole since, even though I'm in Null Alliance and I'm mainly in Null these days. I do a lot of blopsing in SIGs that have people from all over the game. We'll drop on anyone who isn't blue to any one particular person in the fleet. They also drop on us, but then they don't bring the Imperium people for that, obviously. And the tournament side of things takes up a couple of months a year of like playing 10-12 hours a week minimum for scrims and theory crafting and so on. And other than that, I kind of like to try different things to see what sticks. I've tried most of the things in the game at this point. Like there are some holdouts, like I don't know, Cosmos missions or some like esoteric things, but I enjoy almost every aspect of the game. I'm not a big industry person. I do a decent amount of market trading and hauling just on the side. That's how I make my money. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So tell us, what is your platform that you're running on for CSM this year? What are your target issues that you're going to be bringing or working hard to bring to the game?
I feel as a nullsec candidate, we kind of get a bad rap for like, you're here just for your own alliance, and they tell you what to say, and then you just ask for like buffs to nullsec all day. But we have quite a few nullsec candidates, and generally the nullsec candidates also have like their own thing that they're about. And from Brave before me, we had like Dunk was on the CSM and Jinx has been on the CSM. So we have a bit of history of being new player advocates. Like we are Brave newbies after all. So
Right.
Especially this year, there wasn't really anyone else particularly focused on new players. So in the past year, I spent a lot of time talking about that. And that comes down to like the new player experience, how will new changes apply to new players in the game, what kind of things will help with player retention, player recruitment, how do we get players from starting the new player experience, doing the missions in the start to learn the game, and like how do you progress from there into somebody who can't stop playing Eve. And CCP's own data suggests that people who join Corps, they stick with the game. So, like, helping with Corp recruitment, and like the freelance projects are meant to highlight Corps that are active. They put out the projects for people to do, and then they also try to like poach anyone who does their projects, right? That's good for the game. Other than new player aspects, I do kind of love ship balance. I had a big hand in at least selecting a lot of the ships that were in the last update. Things that ships that have been bad for a while or needed a bit of love, or in the case of the FNI, a ship that has been very good for quite a while and needed a bit of hate. And lastly, my big platform personal pet project for the next term in the CSM is very strongly advocating for weapon tiericide and finding an expansion in the near future where CCP will just sit down and get that done once and for all, because it needs to get done. It will just, it's a tool that will make balancing ships so much better in the future once it's actually done, which requires a lot of work, engineering time. It needs like a lot of decisions made by the actual game designers.
So if you had complete control over, which I know you absolutely do not, but how would you like to see tiericide of weapons implemented? Like, what changes would you specifically like to see?
Well, the main crux of weapon tiericide is turning the skills and the bonuses into how missiles have it. So instead of having one skill that is small lasers, and having one skill that is small pulse lasers and small beam lasers, and having all laser boats give bonuses to all lasers, like how it is in guns, that's not how missiles work. Missiles, you can have, for instance, the Cerberus has a bonus that applies only to hams. And, like, on the flip side, if the Eagle had that, it could have a bonus that applied only to blasters. And we wouldn't have to nerf the Eagle into obscurity because it was an exceedingly good rail platform that was too good, so they had to nerf it for rails and therefore making blasters completely trash. Or how when the Munin was way too good because artillery made it too good, they had to turn it into a missile boat because they couldn't give it an autocannon bonus that didn't apply to artillery. And the list goes on and on, because for instance the FNI, which by all accounts, if you look at the bonuses, is like a bonus to fitting local shield repair and a local shield repair bonus and a tracking bonus and a damage bonus. You think they want that ship to have an ASB, an XL ASB and blasters, and then everyone said, well, we're going to put extenders on it and rails, or we're just going to blast people at 100 kilometers range, and then CCP has to nerf the ship until it's balanced for rails and terrible for blasters. So if I could change, like if I had the way to do it, it would mainly be to split so that all the weapon systems are split into bonuses for long range and short range. But there are actually 35 different weapons in the game that are 250 millimeters. So a little bit of a cleanup so that it's not that confusing. Like if you look at 250 millimeters in game, there are 35 different versions of that. And that spans artillery, 250 millimeter howitzers, and 250 millimeter railguns, and dual 250 millimeter railguns. Like, it's kind of a mess in terms of naming and so on. And then also, maybe we don't need quite as many versions. Maybe we don't need 200 millimeters and 250 millimeters. Like, nobody really uses 200 millimeter rails unless they're forced to for fitting reasons. So a little bit of simplicity in how to fit things. Like, you're losing granularity, but it might be worth making it a little bit easier for people.
Absolutely, yeah. No, that's interesting. I never even thought about that when it comes to the ship not be like, if they wanted to make the ENI a blaster boat, the only way they can do that is nerf rails into the ground and not just have the bonus be 2 blasters. And so and that's and one thing though that I would point out though is, do you feel though that by doing these kind of things, it it makes it so that CCP, yes, is able to have a more clear vision and a clear like product for what they're putting out as to this is what this ship does, but doesn't that take out some of the like creativity that, you know, CCP intended it for it to be this way, but it turned out to be used in this fashion instead? And that's like a hallmark of Eve, right?
I think that Kaldari ships in particular have shown us a bit of the way on how this could look. Because, for instance, if you look at like the Osprey Navy, it has a kinetic damage bonus that is higher than its regular missile damage bonus. So you don't have to say like this ship is bonused only to blasters, but you could say it's slightly more bonus to blasters. And then you have some ships like the Mordu's Legion lineup that have the bonuses to range of rapid heavies and rapid lights and so on that no other ship gets in the same way. So you have like some ships that are like just meant to be a little bit busted when it comes to like a certain type of weapon. Like that could even be a particular faction ship within a lineup where it's like, we want this to just be a nasty rail ship that people hate to fly against. But on the other hand, I was looking, before we did this balance pass most recently, I was looking at ships that were used infrequently and are considered kind of trash. And we had like the Maelstrom and the Confessor and the Sveeple. And then there's the Omen and the Harbinger and the Harbinger Navy and the Zealot and the Laser Legion. And all of these have an issue where they are all kind of subpar and they all use the same weapon system. But because pulse lasers are very good in certain situations and beam lasers are very good in other situations, and they both have kind of a range bias because Scorch is an amazing ammo type and beam lasers are pretty good in and of themselves, where they can't really be balanced, and nor can the weapon system be balanced without like uplifting some of the ships that just don't need it. Like,
right, giving CCP more levers to play with, basically.
Yeah, for sure. Like the Absolution, if it suddenly had like 25% more damage on beam lasers, would be oppressive. And the Omen Navy is like a top 20 ship in the game currently. I think it's like in 16th last I checked in terms of usage, and it's quite good and it's very popular, and it would become instantly oppressive if we suddenly made beam lasers do 20% more damage or 20% more range, or like whatever thing beam lasers need for Zealots to be good again or for Harbingers to be good again, it would ruin the ecosystem. So having more levers just means that we don't have to have this discussion every time a ship is good in one configuration, but also sees use in other configurations as well.
Absolutely. So kind of pivoting from that over to one of your other topics that you said you're focused in on. So you said you're focused back on also including new player experience and, you know, how to get new players into the game. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience now that you've been in CSM? Is there any changes to your old platform that you kind of are updating? Or is there any knowledge that you gained from being on the CSM that really helps you understand how to bring about a better new player experience? And do you have any like really big plans for that? Or is there any specific things that you're looking to change in that area?
The same thing that I had on my platform last time was a bridge between the first career agents and the next step of the journey. I think maybe freelance projects could bring in something there, especially teaching players about other areas of space than high-sec, I think, is particularly lacking. Like, telling people just go into faction warfare when they don't know what a scram is kind of difficult. Like, that needs to be explained better, and I think CCP think that players would be better at explaining that. CCP Rotati did do an interview at FanFest where he talked about wanting projects to be able to let players make missions and make epic arcs and stuff like that. Before I became a CSM member, when I went and I asked people, like, give me your best ideas and, like, what do you want me to champion on the CSM, I didn't get nearly as much as after I made it onto the CSM. Then I got tons of ideas from people who have real problems in the game, which, like, I wasn't aware of. One of them in particular being, if you are a corp that recruits players that don't speak English, but also don't speak language that has a localization, the main way to recruit people is by anchoring mobile depots in high-sec. And now we are getting 37 languages which you can use to advertise your corps in and so on. So, like, if somebody who, in this case, speaks Czech wants to find your corp, that is something that you can search for in the game once it's implemented. It was announced at this FanFest. It's not in the game yet. Coming soon, TM. And that's the kind of thing that I would not have known that people necessarily needed. But it's hard for unsupported languages to find the players that they want. I think that one issue for the newest players is that it's almost an insultingly low amount of money for the first things that players are given to do. Level 1 missions playing like 4 digits worth of ISK. Like, you can't buy one module for the payout you get for doing a level 1 mission, for instance. Like, that might be too little. It is too little. Especially when you get 500,000 ISK for doing 3 jumps now in the air opportunities.
Right,
but
yep.
That and that is supposed to be like 50 times more than doing a mission. Like, why is that disparity in effort? Especially since we have so much inflation in the game. Like, very young players do things that pay them badly, and if they think about it too hard, they'll realize that it's unfair. And they might see, like, I don't know, people talk about making 1 billion ISK per hour, and they have made 250,000 ISK in an hour of play, and they might quit over it. Or they might feel like they'll never afford the thing that they want to buy, or especially if they're ganked. It's a feel bad when... So a venture costs 500,000, you fit it, it costs 1 million for a new player, Tech 1 modules. You go and you mine, and the next step up costs 100 million ISK. And mining to get a barge with a venture takes like weeks, right? If you're a new player, don't know quite what you're doing, you're mining Veldspar and high-sec, like, it shouldn't be that bad. Like, there should be some bridging activities where you've done the first things that you're supposed to do in the game, and then there's an intermediary step of like a junior player experience where they teach you about, I don't know, going into low-sec, going into wormholes, joining corps, mining better minerals, not being in high-sec, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I do say that. I mean, I think that there is somewhat of that. I mean, the air opportunities in the game, the things that you kind of get from the opening new player experience, I know, are a lot better than they definitely were back in the day. And now that we have player-made kind of almost player-made missions of contracts that you can, get and projects that you can get that are freelance. There's lots of opportunities to make a lot of money as a new player. And it is one of those know-how things, but I could definitely see how for mining for venture, unless you can get them into the mission system, I don't know how you really mining with a venture to try and upgrade. I don't know how you can really fix that per se, because that's always going to be an extremely low activity or ISK activity, just based on, because there's other things you can do with a venture that can actually get you pretty decent amount of pay in a fairly brand new character. And then faction warfare allows for, if you know what you're doing, you can make a whole bunch of money with a low skill character, and you can learn how to do that within like the first couple weeks inside of a game for sure, especially if you, like you said, meeting somebody or joining a corporation, which is extremely easy to do once you've breached into faction warfare, can get you some solid amount of money as a new player. But I do think that it kind of goes back to one of the problems with EVE is that there's an ISK per hour mentality that needs to kind of be curbed somehow. It would be something that I would say.
New players don't really think about it in that way. That is more of an like how established players compare things between each other. I made a friend. They posted on Reddit and they said, "I've never played EVE. I'd like a mentor for EVE." And we ended up playing through the new player experience. I just said, like, anything you want to do, I'll throw money at getting you into that thing. I'll show you how it's done. We'll go and we'll try it together. And we did abyssals, we did mining in low sec, we did exploration, we did a whole bunch of stuff. But I was following somebody who knew nothing about the game, and they were deciding the kind of stuff that we'd do. And there are a lot of things that I know about the game that when I'm asked about it, I'm having a hard time showing people in the game, like not showing the wiki and not explaining because I already know the answer. But like when you're in the game, how do you tell where a low-sec system is? Because the map overlay doesn't show security status, right? It shows incursions, it shows faction warfare, it shows SOV. Like, if I told somebody go into low-sec in the game, like, how do you find the nearest low-sec system unless you know how to already? Do you, like, click on a system name and then see adjacent?
A really good point, because you eventually figure out your neighborhood. And that's, I going back to when I was new to this game, it was like just me and a bunch of friends that we were all new, so we didn't join a new corporation or bigger corporation until like 3 months into playing the game, and we spent the first 3 months just in awe of this game, living out of low-sec after, like my friends had found like Old Man Star and I had found Hain. We moved out of Old Man Star because it was dangerous as hell, and Hain was this weird pocket inside of a pocket inside of a pocket. And so we learned like a lot of different things about the game. But yeah, ISK per hour was one of the things that was not part of our mentality, but being able to accomplish and do kind of interesting things in the game where, we wanted to set up our own place of living, I think one thing about EVE that I find really interesting is the home. Home in many other games is like, okay, I live out of this city, one of the 10 or 15 major area, like cities throughout like any other MMORPG. Maybe you have like a building or something that you can kind of access that's like a special like instanced area that's your own kind of thing. Ultima Online did have a lot of what we have, which was actually way crazier because it was limited land. So once like the first year after like people started putting down stuff, or as soon as the server came online, the whole like thing just got filled with houses as quickly as possible. But you could have like giant ass castles and stuff. But in Eve, where you live matters greatly and has like a completely different new player experience based upon where you're living out of. Like for the first like month of the game, I didn't know what a trade hub was. I thought Ursulert was what we called Ursulert the city, man. That was like you could get a lot of stuff there. Not everything, but you could get most of what you needed. And I would spend hours just flying around picking up items, just to get a fit for what I was doing. I do feel that there has been an improvement there, and one of the things that I think CCP should be leaning into with the new player experience is that aspect without the corporation. Because as soon as you join a corporation, you're going to follow their new player experience, basically. And to be honest, I think that there are a lot of corporations that you can join that have a really bad new player experience with groups. That their way of teaching or their aspect of how to play the game is really rough, and there needs or is not something that you actually thought that you want to be doing. And that's the reason why I think that even though there's certain aspects of this game that I feel you need a corporation to kind of teach you how to do things, and those are group activities, there's a ton of solo activities that CCP, I think, needs to really focus on providing information to new players. For example, the D-scanner is like one of the big, Kashal and I were talking about that last interview, is that's just number one. Like, why is there no information from CCP in a tutorial that teaches you how to D-scan? And when it is an extremely integral part of the game, and important to be able to do things like faction warfare.
I think if we're looking at first of all, a glossary in the game would be great. Because, you're told you can go and look at the air opportunities. And you go to air opportunities, and it says, capture a contested faction warfare plex. And, what is that? It would be good if you could click on, and it would give, just a explanation. A glossary for a lot of terms would be kind of useful. There are certain things that are just hard to find in the game because, it's referenced, but it's never explicitly. You can't search. You can't write low-sec into the search bar at the top left corner of your screen and get, just a straight-up dictionary definition of that. And
Absolutely.
When it comes to, D-scan, yes, there should be a tutorial thing for D-scan. But if we make a list of all the things that we should have a tutorial thing for, I think we're going to find that there are so many things that the game would be perceived as boring if the default tutorial had, instead of the current 45 career agent missions, if it had 250 career agent missions, here's how you learn to D-scan, here's how you learn to scram someone, here's how you learn to capture a faction warfare plex, here's how you learn how to compress, or eventually I think that outsourcing this to the players and giving the players a robust framework with projects to make this for people, and then when you're a new player and you join a corp and you ask how do I D-scan, they can both tell you. But if you're a solo player, you can search for D-scan, and then you can find the top 3 rated D-scan tutorials made by players, and you can try it yourself. That would be great. I'm pretty sure I spoke about this last time we spoke, and it bears repeating. I love making a completely new character, joining the first corp to send me a mail in game and recruit me, I'll just set it up like a spy. I'll make my own new Discord. I'll make a new email. I'll pretend to be somebody who's never played the game before, and I'll just do what they tell me to do. And to your point about like new player corporations which give a bad experience, you'll have the ones that give a bad experience because it's unstructured, or good because it's unstructured, and they just tell you like philosophical things like never worry about ISK per hour, worry about fun per hour. Or they'll say, if you die, you absolutely should not care about that. You should just beg for a new ship. If you don't have money, people will give it to you. Like, that's what I tell new players as well. But on the flip side, you have like the very structured but not great experience where they give you a skill queue that is 1 year long and say, train exactly this. And then eventually you'll get through. I joined a corp that did like a half and half, where they had like 8 skill modules, where it's like, this is skill number 1, like skill plan number 1, skill plan number 2, and then every time you finished a skill plan, you'd be given a couple of ships that belong to that tier. So it's like the first tier is like Tech 1 frigates, so you get a couple of Tech 1 frigates, and the next one is Tech 1 destroyers, you get a couple of Tech 1 destroyers, and then it's cruisers and battle cruisers and battleships, and then you do like Tech 2 frigates and faction cruisers and logistics cruisers, and then like I got found out to be a spy before I got any further than that, because they ended up being horde aligned, and I got caught. It was a little bit embarrassing. I got kicked out, but
you'll have that.
Basically, they found out because they had a spy on my side of the things, and they compared mumble hashes. It was a thing. But I do that once in a while. I like seeing how the other side lives. I also get a great amount of good ideas of like how to make a better new player experience in my neck of the woods.
Absolutely. We do have a question from the audience. Mitskov asks, what about contraband? It's been implemented way before they joined EVE. Nowadays, it's just an Empire standings in Annihilator for new bros not aware about the automatic standing loss linked to having contraband in your cargo. Typically after finishing a level 1 or level 2 mission as a new bro. Contraband is part of the lore since a long time in video games about space, for like the X series and Freelancer and stuff like that. Do you have any ideas on what could be done to improve contraband, or would you be in favor of removing contraband?
I actually had a contraband issue last week. I'd not thought about this for a very long time. I've heard other reasons why people had talked about contraband more because of like we still have like slaves in the game, and some people were uncomfortable about that, and that's a whole separate discussion. But I got EVE Guru, and EVE Guru has a regional day trader module where it will like give you a list of stuff to buy in one area, and then you move it to another area, and then you sell it there. And it just searches through and finds stuff that is a good price in one place and a bad price in another, and you move it and sell it. And I wasn't questioning it too much. I just bought what it told me to do. I moved it and I was going to sell it, but it found contraband for me, and I hadn't thought about it because I don't know. I haven't memorized all like 5,000 items in the game, so I just bought small arms in Galante space, where small arms are allowed, guns, America, like, and so I brought it to Kaldari space, and they're like, hand over the contraband, and we'll destroy your freighter, and I'm like, I hadn't even considered that. To be entirely honest, I don't even know what I was selling is used for. I don't like it's. I know it's an item that you need for the Palatine Keep Star, But other than that, I really just have no idea why I would care. Like, I don't know why I care that the items are in the game. I would need to look into that before I sweepingly say, "Ah, just get rid of it all," because that might have ramifications that I don't know. But I was mightily annoyed by the fine of like a couple of million isk from moving the contraband. Especially, I don't think that they belong in low level missions for new players. Like, that seems like an oversight to me. If somebody randomly gets a pop up that says click yes or click no, and if you click the wrong one, you get destroyed. That kind of sucks for new players. Like, not to say that new players need to be protected from being destroyed. I still think ganking has a place in EVE Online. I still think accidentally shooting the faction police has a place in EVE Online. But there should be a reason to do so, and it shouldn't be a secret until you get destroyed why it's happening.
Right, yeah. Maybe something that is a little bit more. I would see like it sounds like what they need to do is either remove the penalties for it, and to a certain degree, like make sure that that's that there's no imbalance because of that. But at the very least, do something with it because it doesn't sound like it's in a good spot. So one way or the other, make a decision. That's.
I have a huge spreadsheet and it just has everything anyone has ever suggested to me. And like at the top, there's like the hundreds of times people have said ACL hangers, and then like more bookmarks and the very popular ones. And at the end, there are the less frequent ones, like contraband. I have not had anyone reach out to me about that before, but I can add it to the list because these things are just great, right? And CCP for the CSM have a place where we can go and we can just write whatever we want, and they will go and they'll read it and look at it, and we're encouraged to just put everything there, and they should be able to see that somebody has mentioned contraband.
Awesome. And so before we wrap on up, I want to make sure that we've hit all of your important talking points. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you'd like to explain about your CSM platform?
I guess not particularly about the platform, but we are representatives of the player base. Like, whatever platform we have is kind of what we are doing in between what other people ask us about. Like, I obviously have opinions. I don't, like, unfiltered ask CCP for everything that I am asked for. But, on the other hand, I bring forward most of the things that I'm asked for. Most of them are very sensible quality of life things and bug reports and so on, as I mentioned before. Please reach out. We absolutely have time to bring up basically everything. I answer every message I get. I have all the discussions people want to have with me, and then I'll give you an answer about like whether I've already talked about it with them, or whether we've been told that like this is further down the line for technical limitations. Like, that happens once in a while, especially ACL hangers. Please, we want ACL hangers, CCP. But like, reach out, tell me what you want, tell me what you think of the game, anything really. That's like the essence of CSM. Like, we don't go in and say, we want this and we want that, or else. We are basically there to help the players and help CCP, first and foremost.
Awesome. And then, is there anybody that you want to shout out to? Any other CSM members that you're running against that you feel have a really cool platform, or anybody you wanna attack? You wanna go into the attack and be like, this guy's. You guys get him off. He can't be on. You'll destroy it. No.
I think that would probably be in poor taste to attack people. And yeah, and by
But
the
this
way,
is politics. What are you talking about, man? Aren't you
like,
guys? Don't you have like?
the other thing is, like, we do so much one-on-one work with devs and each other, and like there's a lot of what goes on the CSM for any given CSM member where they don't see what other people are doing. So like even people who seem like they're not doing that much might be like super busy in DMs getting stuff done, and that stuff could be great. So like attacking, not so much. In no particular order, Drake Iden, Mick Fightmaster, Young Puke 2, absolutely goats of the CSM. They did so much. They are doing stuff every day with the CSM. Like, if anyone else should get your vote after me, of course, they should get it. They're great. Please vote for all of us. And yeah, the rest of the CSM had a lot of good people this year. The Oz, and now we have Angry Mustache is returning. Like, if you need to know what's going on in the economy, the MER, they absolutely deserve your vote. Ariel Wren, ESI Master Extraordinaire. He will make all of your third-party applications better forever. Like, good vote there. There are just so many qualified people. Kashal Adron, I think, is one of my favorite people, possibly the person I most want to see on the CSM that I haven't worked with yet. Yeah, go read the CSM forum. Look on the Eve Discord as well. Like, there are tons of qualified candidates, and lots to learn from them, and they have lots to learn from you.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. Thank you all for watching and listening, and have a great night.
Yeah, likewise.
So we are back real quick here because I have some push-ups and a stretch. So I gotta do some stretching real quick here. And we did get a call for 10 push-ups. I tried to keep myself in shape a little bit, you know. Luckily, Stream can help me with that. So I'll be right back after 10 push-ups. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whoa, always stretch. All right. Well, after that note, I'm going to go ahead and actually wrap it on up. So thank you all. Have a good one.
A tier 1 frigate gets about 5.3, 5.5 million average. A tier 2 destroyer gets